everybody, welcome to Steampunk Reviews. This is the special Halloween episode. I hope you're all having a thrills and chills full couple of days before the big event. And today I will hope to increase those thrills and chills with the film, my review of the film Don't Be Afraid of the Dark, and the companion book and prequel, Blackwood's Guide to Dangerous Fairies. So, on with the show. Don't Be Afraid of the Dark is actually a remake of a made-for-TV movie that got a bit of a cult following. I'm not sure when the original movie was made, somewhere in the 70s, 80s, 90s, whatever. The new version is directed by Troy Nixey, who is apparently a comic book artist, and it is produced by Guillermo del Toro, who has his sticky little fingerprints all over this film. When I say that, allow me to explain the plot and tell me if this starts to sound familiar. Little girl moves into a new house with her one parent and the parent's new spouse. Little girl resents the new spouse. Little girl discovers there are fairies in the basement. Or on the grounds. Does this sound like Pan's Labyrinth to anybody other than me? You know, just a tad, just a wee bit. Well, this is where the plot diverges heavily from Pan's Labyrinth, because the fact is that the fairies in Don't Be Afraid of the Dark are even less friendly than the ones in Pan's Labyrinth, and I think given that measuring stick, we all know the kind of deep water we're getting into. The little girl, named Sally, quickly discovers that the fairies, who are known as Toothbreakers — they're never actually referred to this in the movie, you have to read the companion book to discover that — are after two things. They're after her teeth, which they intend to rip out and consume, and they are interested in dragging her into their world, because any person, though primarily children, dragged into the world of the Toothbreakers can then be turned into a Toothbreaker. I don't even want to know what went into that, or goes into that. Let's just move right along. Don't stare too long. It might... the abyss will start staring back. So, after the point where these things have been established, the movie starts to take a pretty standard horror film setup. You know, Sally to her father, Daddy, there are Toothbreakers in the basement. Father, no, there aren't. You are a disturbed little child. This is not... I will send you to a psychologist. You will be better. Sure, stepwife, as played by Katie Holmes. But I think she's right. I'm finding proof. I have a picture. Sure, father again. And no, I will be obstreperously stupid for no apparent reason, even though there are clearly things happening that make absolutely zero sense in my house, and my daughter seems to be seriously disturbed by it all. I'm not going to do a damn thing. Until, of course, finally I'm confronted with absolute proof, and at this juncture, that's when the entire showdown takes place in the basement, and it's too late for one of these three characters, who I just totally mimed for you. So, the end of the movie is good, bad, what makes this movie worth seeing, I think, what sets it aside from any other horror film, is two things. One, this is a horror movie that is genuinely terrifying. Genuinely. It does not, and the reason that it's terrifying is that it doesn't play on the usual fears that we have, or the ones that most horror films nowadays play on. It does not play to physical trauma. It does not play to, oh, this actually happened, I'm looking at you, Paranormal Activity. It does not play to, monstrous animals, i.e., huge metamorphized sharks. What this plays to is the very natural, primal human fear of, first of all, vermin. That basically what this family is dealing with is an infestation in their house. It just happens to be, rather than rats or cockroaches or spiders, an infestation of sentient life that happens to really, really want to rip your teeth out. So, first of all, that's, I'd say, really the biggest terror. I mean, for nights after seeing this movie, I didn't want to turn the lights out because I was afraid I would see little reflective eyes in the darkness. It was a rough week after that. The other horrors, it does use a certain amount of physical horror. It's not completely devoid of it, but at the same time, it uses it sparingly enough that it's really, really jarring. As opposed to when you watch a film like Saw or Hostel or something to that effect, the violence becomes so constant that you get numb to it. As opposed to in Don't Be Afraid of the Dark, where the violence is so abrupt, and it is often so disturbing. Again, primarily there's a fair bit of dental trauma, and if you're particularly attached to your teeth, you may not want to see this movie. That occurs over the course of the film. Then there's also there's other events, someone's leg getting broken the other direction, people getting attacked by the Toothbreakers, who are incredibly vicious little monsters. And all the way around. So, again, first of all, the movie's terrifying. If you like horror films, you are going to like this. Second of all, the movie is gorgeous, especially in terms of sets. The actual house where the entire plot is pretty much centered around, the one that is infested with the Toothbreakers, is just this gorgeous Victoriana architecture, what have you. It's got huge libraries and sweeping staircases and hidden doors and the really creepy basement with its according entrance to the Toothbreaker realm, and one of the creepiest murals you've ever seen. The mural is on the front cover of this book. Let's see. Can you see that? What you're looking at here is a little boy who has been grabbed by trees, about to be fed to the Toothbreakers underground. Joyful. So on top of all this, you also have the grounds, which are absolutely, again, those are also very, very gorgeous, though they do give a more heavy impression of one being in Victorian England, even though this is technically supposed to be set, I believe, in North America somewhere, probably New England. So England, yes, just not the right one. Then there's the library that Katie Holmes goes to do research on the Toothbreakers, and the house's original owner, Blackwood, who's the supposed author of the book. And this library is absolutely gorgeous. It's just, again, it's the one in the house is good. The one that she goes to is better. It's I can't even describe. Just shades of gold and brass and old wood, and I mean, you feel like you're in there. You feel like you should be smelling leather and book mildew as the shots pan through. So gorgeous, terrifying, also well researched. In the research section, which I mentioned, the librarian who is informing Katie Holmes of the behavior of Blackwood, and it's worthy of note that the story there is that Blackwood was a naturalist who did a lot of like Audubon style images until he moved into this house and started believing in fairies and started producing a lot of weird Audubon images of fairies, which I'm going to get to in just a second, I swear to God. And it is at this juncture that the librarian brings up the little-known, well, actually not entirely, if you've been in the right circles, you know of him. He brings up Arthur Machen, who was a Victorian-era writer of fantasy, and primarily fantasy and horror, and a huge influence on the likes of H.P. Lovecraft and so forth. I absolutely love Arthur Machen. I'm going to plug him right here. Just go out, find the book, The Great God Pan. It should be in its entirety online somewhere. You don't even have to pay for it. Then read it. And you will, this is another example of horror minus the violence, or in the case of, due to the fact that this was published in the Victorian era, you have to fill in the horror on your own, which can be a little bit unsatisfying, but at the same time, when you get to the nitty-gritty of it all, it's awesomely creepy. But again, reference to Arthur Machen. So, someone had a brain when they were writing this. Wow! Miracles. Will they never cease? And with that, moving from book to book, Blackwood's Guide to Dangerous Fairies. This book is the prequel to, it explains about Blackwood, it explains about his discovery of the fairy world, his being cast out by his colleagues, the disappearance of his son, and then his own disappearance, which are chronicled to a certain degree at the beginning of the movie. The book itself, aside from the sections that are supposedly drawn from Blackwood's journal, serves as a pretty standard if you've ever read a bestiary or a compendium or Magical Beasts and Where to Find Them, you've experienced a book like this. However, what makes this one different is the factoid that it plays profoundly to the creepy. And when I say creepy, I mean seriously. This is so wrong. It's so awesome. The artist Troy Nixie is apparently responsible for the art. And given that factoid, I really need to go out and get one of his actual comic books, because this stuff is awesome. As for example, this is an image as portrayed of a banshee. Hopefully this is actually coming through. Yes, that is a wizened God knows what in a window. I don't even know. It's so creepy. It's so amazingly creepy. I absolutely love it. Now, not to mention that, you also have anyone who knows anything about Guillermo del Toro knows that he has his notebooks in which he illustrates, draws designs for his various characters and monsters and what have you. And this book comes complete with some of his sketches of the Toothbreakers. See why I couldn't sleep for nights on end? Yeah, that'll stick in your brain. So, what do I think about both of them? Do I think you should buy them, watch them, read them? I think that you should definitely watch Don't Be Afraid of the Dark. And I think after that juncture, it's up to you. For me, I wanted more, so I went out and if you find yourself craving more fairy-based horror, go out and get this. If not, get yourself a magnesium flare and a shotgun and expect to stay up for a bunch of nights. Or possibly do both. Whatever. So, that's it for today. Next week I will be reviewing Flaming Zeppelins. And I hope you all have an excellent Halloween. I hope you eat the candy, drink the cider, don't go into any actually haunted houses and get dismembered by evil fairies, and have a great time. Ta!